Joining me now is the Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Virginia Democrat Mark Warner. Senator, I want to begin with this reporting that the military conducted a second strike on what the administration claims was a drug-carrying boat from Venezuela after the initial strike failed to kill all on board. That's according to a U.S. official and a source familiar with the action. What is your reaction to this reporting?
My reaction is, why are we waiting 3 months to get this information? I've reached out now to the commanding officer, Admiral Bradley, and expect him to come in and brief my committee and other senior members on what happened. I think it's time for the administration to release the whole unedited video of this strike. We saw lots of images, and we've seen, particularly out of this Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, it started with Signalgate. It seems it's one chaotic action after another, and I don't know what to believe coming out of this DOD. I do know that Admiral Bradley's got a good reputation. I do know that there are many sailors from Virginia that have been deployed in the region. I want them to be safe. I want them to be professional. I want them to stay legal, and those are questions that I've got to get answers to.
The Washington Post is reporting that this was to comply with a verbal directive from Secretary Hegseth to kill everybody. Would that be a war crime if such a directive was given?
Well, again, I think one of your prior guests said, if these individuals, were they still on the boat, were they in the water? My understanding of rule of war is if clearly somebody has become a non-combatant and doesn't have any means to further attack, that would be a violation of the rules of war. But I want to, again, hear from the admiral in charge, and I hope he'll be able to share whether Secretary Hegseth, who, again, I've thought for a long time is way over his head, actually ordered that verbal order or not. And I think we need to get to the bottom of this. And, again, one of the ways that at least Congress could make a judgment is if the administration would release the wholly unedited video. We saw parts of this video months ago, but it appears now we may have only seen what the administration wanted us to see.
This is just one of more than 20 strikes in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific. We've been told that at least 82 people have been killed. Are you concerned that similar second strikes to kill survivors may have been carried out in those instances?
I'd like to get the answer to that, absolutely. And one of the things I've made the case, I'm not saying there were not drugs on some of these vessels, but why not interdict them, show the world the drugs, show the world that these are narco traffickers on these boats and not simply, some poor guy from a village who's paid an extra $100 or in some cases, reports of migrants. So if the administration is so sure of their facts, show us and show the world. They've chosen not to do that.
The president, as we've noted, the Armed Services Committee said that they're going to be looking into this reported second strike. Are there any plans for your Intelligence Committee to do the same? And have you spoken with the chair, Senator Cotton, on this?
I'll be speaking with Tom Cotton later. Clearly, the Armed Services Committee is looking into it. We've want the commander, Commander Bradley, or Admiral Bradley, to give us his rendition. He's a military professional, but this is the problem. This administration and the Defense Department, particularly under Pete Hegseth, has been so chaotic that you've finally even got Republican members of the Armed Services Committee saying, slow down, time out, something's clearly not right here, and let's investigate it fully. I wish we'd have started these kind of bipartisan investigations much earlier.
And maybe expand on that a little bit. Are you hearing, even privately from your Republican colleagues, that they're concerned about what's happening in South America right now?
We have seen this administration, and I've gone to the floor a number of times, undermine the integrity of our intelligence community. We've seen them undermine the integrity of the FBI. We've seen military leaders fired without reason. The head of the NSA, the former, frankly, SOCOM commander who retired early. I've heard concerns, finally, maybe after the drubbing that the Republicans took last month. People are beginning to raise their hands a little bit more. But these kind of undermining of the basic integrity of oftentimes of our intel community, you don't put that genie back in the bottle right away. And I do think it's finally time that some of the Republicans are saying, well, maybe this has long-term negative consequences for our country and its defense.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
And let's face it, one other thing quickly, Ryan.
Yeah.
We also need to acknowledge, and I think most of my Republican colleagues as well, American intervention in Central America and South America over the last century hadn't gone too well. Mm-hmm. And we still have gotten no brief on what justification the president would use, other than Maduro's a bad guy, on what action that he might take towards Venezuela. So there's been concerns about that as well.
All right, I want to ask you about that in a second, but I want to go back to what you said about the potential of these boats actually carrying drugs. You and your colleagues on the Intelligence, Armed Services, and Foreign Relations Committees were briefed by Secretaries Rubio and Hegseth last month. At that time, you expressed confidence in the administration's, quote, visibility into these drug trafficking lanes and our intelligence assets. Do you maintain that confidence now in the wake of this weekend's reporting?
I have confidence that we have pretty good routes on tracing the drugs. But having drugs on these boats and everyone on the boats being a narco trafficker, or in the case of what the reporting of requiring a second strike where people may or may not have been combatants at that point, that is a very different issue than whether there might be or there is drugs on the boat. I can accept the fact that there are drugs on the boat. I've never accepted the fact that everyone that's on these boats is an avowed narco-terrorist. And I think, again, if the administration can prove that, interdict the darn boats and show the world.
Yeah, and let's now go back to this potential growing conflict with Venezuela. How concerned are you about direct military action in that country?
I would be very concerned. I mean, and let me be clear, Maduro was a bad guy, and I think the Biden administration made a mistake when the Venezuelan people voted overwhelmingly. Nearly 2/3 of the population came out strongly and voted Maduro out. And we didn't put enough pressure on the adjacent countries like Mexico, Colombia, Brazil to push Maduro out then. What Trump may be doing by this show of force is actually doing something that Maduro could never accomplish on his own, restoring, making himself a bit of a hero to the Venezuelan people, because the idea of North American intervention in their country, one way to guarantee Maduro's support, local support, or frankly support from other nations in the region, it would be for Americans to strike without further evidence of either drugs or more nefarious behavior from Maduro.
And then last week you said that you hadn't been briefed on any potential military action in Venezuela. Are you confident at least a gang of 8 would receive some sort of briefing before any action is taken?
Well, Ryan, as you know, I didn't get briefed in advance of the strike on Iran. So do I have confidence that this administration will follow what is the law in terms of informing Congress? I have very little confidence at all, because that has been born of 11 months of this administration blowing off congressional requests, not getting us the information in appropriate timing. Again, remember, the legal opinion on taking this action was made in July 25th, I believe. We didn't get a chance to look at that legal opinion until middle of last month. This is not an administration that plays by any defined traditional set of rules in terms of informing Congress, frankly, of either party.
Okay. Senator Mark Warner, Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Ryan.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or watch live on our YouTube channel.